It's all yours, John.
All right. Thank you very much. Um, well, thank you for having me today. Um, you have to bear with me. I haven't done a presentation in a while. Um, but I think this is a really important topic. I'm an in-home personal trainer. I've been doing in-home personal training for um, over 10 years now. My degree is from George Mason in exercise science. The IIN certification that Cheryl mentioned is Institute for Integrative Nutrition. So I also have a certification and a um, knowledgeable background on health-related nutrition issues. Um, but the reason why we're here today is to talk about aging and the importance of physical activity and or exercise. Um, my having done this, been in this industry for 20 years now. Um, my average age client is 72 years old. Um, so I I I find it really important with this age group to be strong and to be capable. That's my primary goal for all of my clients is that they are capable of doing kind of anything that they wish to be able to do. A lot of times as we age, we start to get a little bit weaker and cautious and start to not do things that we want to do because of that. Um, and so that's why I think it's really important to exercise and strength train as you age so that you can maintain the confidence to continue doing the things you enjoy doing. Um, Not say I'm too old for that. Um, but so there's three main things I want to talk about today. Um, the first is physical ability, the importance of strength training and exercise to maintain your physical ability. The second is cardiovascular health, the importance of keeping your cardiovascular system as healthy as possible. And third is mental health, how exercise can affect mental health, how physical condition can affect mental health as we age. Um, so starting off, physical ability. Physical ability is, are you able to participate in daily activities without aid? Um, as we age, we slowly lose the ability to do the things that we don't practice regularly. Um, Things like reaching high places. I don't know if anybody on here has experienced that yet, where you're reaching for a cabinet or reaching to change a light bulb in it, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, that was harder than it I remember it being or should have been. Um, Even washing your hair in the shower can become challenging. And these are daily activities, things that we practice, but not with a deliberate intent to maintain the ability to do that. And our bodies are what I call efficiency machines. And if I'm talking too fast, let me know. I'm kind of blowing through it. I'll try to slow down a little bit. But by efficiency machines, um, I mean our kind of whole purpose out there, why we're such an industrious species, is to make life easier for us, right? Everything we do and develop has made our lives easier as we've gone through time. And our bodies are no different. Our bodies will try to find pathways that are easier for us to do activities. And so if we don't practice something deliberately over and over and over again, we slowly lose the ability to do it. And we don't realize it until we go to do said activity and we can't, or it's really, really hard. Um, and so these are the reasons why it's really important to strength train and maintain your physical ability. Things like turning your head fully, rotating. I don't know if anybody on here has noticed that when they're driving, when you go to look back and look for cars side to side, can start to become challenging, and you get a little bit stiff in your neck and being able to look over your shoulder to drive. And as we age and we want to maintain our ability to drive, it is critically important that we can still look over our shoulders and see who's in the lane next to us, who's coming from the left and who's coming from the right. Um, The third big skill that we lose, and we don't realize that we lose it, is the ability to walk up and down stairs. If we don't practice going up and down stairs deliberately for the ability to go up and down stairs, we slowly lose the ability to do it. And it happens very slowly over time. First, we maybe hold on to a handrail as we go up and down the stairs, not realizing that not only is it helping us do it physically, but it's also taking away our sense of stability and our balance as we go up and down stairs. A lot of people, I hear this, and I've seen this. My father-in-law used to sell houses, and when people were retiring, they were buying Ramblers, one-level Ramblers, because they didn't want to walk up and down stairs all the time anymore. And it's the fastest way to lose your ability to go up and down stairs, because we don't deliberately practice it every day. And so strength training with leg exercises helps maintain your ability to go up and down stairs, which, if you're trying to be on your own, is critically important. Wherever you are, wherever you're going throughout your day, being able to step up a couple of stairs to get somewhere. And the last one, which might be the most important one that we don't practice nearly enough, is getting up and down off the floor. The biggest problem with not being able to get up and down off the floor is you don't realize that you can't do it until you've gotten down there. And once you've gotten down there and you realize you can't get back up, you're in a lot of trouble. Hearing plenty of stories of people who have fallen or gotten down and didn't realize they couldn't get back up. So that's all part of your physical ability as we age, that we lose these abilities without really realizing we're losing them, because it's such a slow process, and it's something that we don't practice every day. And that's why, whether it's with a personal trainer or not, it's critically important that we strength train and exercise on a very regular basis with the deliberate intent of improving our ability. Because if we just try to maintain our ability, our bodies actually will become really, really efficient at doing whatever we're maintaining, and slowly get worse at it. Find ways to use less energy to do those activities. And with strength training, you're going to give your body a reason. I need to be strong because I know I have to lift something over my head regularly, not occasionally. Or I have to go up and down stairs regularly, not occasionally. I have to get up and down off the floor regularly, not occasionally. Because otherwise your body thinks, I can do that once if I need to, and still get weaker and weaker and weaker. Does that all make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any questions about any of that stuff?
Actually, John, before we get to any questions, we did have somebody ask for your contact info.
Okay.
If you can.
You want me to give it out? I can be reached by phone or email. My phone number is 703-577-2970. And my email address is it's exclusivelyfit@gmail.com. It's EXCLUSIVELYFIT@gmail.com.
All right, so that's now in the chat, so everybody should have both of those. So does anybody have any questions?
Has anybody noticed? You don't have to say, but I'm just wondering if anybody had noticed any of those moments that I talked about in their lives, where all of a sudden it's like, wow, that was harder than I thought it should be.
Well, we've got one comment here. Says somebody that has low blood pressure, and when she tried Pilates floor exercises, getting up and down over and over again made her dizzy for hours afterwards. What exercises are suited to people with low blood pressure?
Um, there's various exercises, but it's that sort of thing is going to be on a kind of case by case basis, but really it's um this possibly the repetition at which they do it and maybe the speed at which they do it. Because that's for sure when you lay down, it gravity it's a lot easier for your body to pump blood through your system when you're laying down than when you're standing up. And so if you have low blood pressure, when you go to stand up from laying down, gravity pulls all the blood down. And if your blood pressure is low, it doesn't pump it back up to your brain really fast. And so that's why it causes you to get really dizzy like that. If that makes sense. And so it would be about modifying and seeing how different exercises, different activities affect that individual.
Well, would it also be a question of just trying to remember to get up more slowly so your body can adjust rather than, springing up as quickly as you
It
can?
definitely could be. Absolutely, it could definitely be that.
And we've got a comment here. They agree that going up and down stairs is good, but they also want to remind people that using a handrail is an important thing to do to avoid falling.
Absolutely, if it's a safety issue. Um, Definitely, and I should preface this. These are um, generalized points of reference. Um, each individual may have their specific health related um, topics and issues that they might be working with, and um, so there's all if for sure from a safety, from a um, balance standpoint, from an injury standpoint, uh, I don't want to make it seem like holding onto a handrail is a is don't hold on to handrails. I definitely don't want to make it seem like that is a bad thing if you're doing it. These are more generalized as we age, things that we start to do without recognizing that we're doing it, that start to break down our body's natural ability to do things. Absolutely. If you don't feel safe, or if you've been directed by a doctor to use a railing, all those things are absolutely perfectly valid.
Okay, next question is, how many minutes of exercise a week would you recommend, and what kinds of exercise?
Um, so that there's a lot that goes into that question.
Yeah.
And it's different for everybody, and it also depends on who you talk to. Um, different people might tell you that you need to exercise 3 days a week. Some people might tell you need to exercise 5 days a week. Some people might tell you need to do exercise every day, and then you also have to classify what is exercise. Also, um, and it's not one size fits all for everybody. I had a kinesiology professor tell me in college once. We tell them 5 days a week so that they'll do it 3 days a week. And if you tell them 7 days a week, they'll just say, I can't do that. Um, and so it really does depend on the individual and where they are, what their goals are, and also what they're willing and able to commit to and do. Any activity is good. Being up and moving is good. Um, so it's hard to say specifically. Walking for 30 minutes every day is fantastic if you can do it. Doing intense strength training 2 to 3 times a week is really good if you can do it. But I hesitate to put a blanket statement out there for everybody to follow. It's try to be as active as possible, not, and when I say as active as possible, this is what kind of separates exercise from activity. Is exercise is with the deliberate purpose of improving one's quality of life. Activity is either for fun or kind of a mental simulation that requires physical activity. And they're two different things. One won't necessarily stimulate change in the body, whereas exercise's deliberate purpose is to stimulate change in the body, if that makes sense. Um, so that's kind of it. It changes for every individual, and for some people, walking is what they can do. And if they're walking deliberately every day because that's what they can do, then that's their exercise. But for other people, walking every day is just an everyday activity and is not stimulating to them for them physically. So I know that that's kind of like a non-answer and generalized answer, but it's kind of do what you can with that you can do with the deliberate intent of improving your quality of life. Gardening is fun for you, and sometimes you get up and down doing it, and sometimes you have to carry things, but it's not for the deliberate purpose of improving your quality of life from a physical standpoint. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I hope
Right.
that was helpful.
Yeah. Um, Next question was about other ways to improve or maintain your sense of balance other than going up and down stairs. Are there other exercises you could recommend?
Absolutely. So depending on each individual, right? Um, our balance is comprised of multiple facets. It's part strength, it's part visual, it's part auditory, it's part sensory, where you can feel your balance, you can see your balance, you can actually hear your balance. Um, and so, uh, from my perspective, from physically, it's kind of about being as strong as possible so that you can support your body through movement, if that makes sense. Um, I can't affect inner ear. I can't affect visual acuity. Um, but what I can affect is practicing feeling the ground underneath of you, practicing how your knees bend into a squat up and down, practicing standing on one foot, possibly moving while standing on one foot. Those are all things that are going to, with practice and repetition, um, allow you to experience movement, um, and get your body used to moving through different planes of motion. Um, a lot of times, people might say this is specifically working on your balance and stuff like that, but our bodies are very activity specific. They learn specific movement patterns, and so practicing one thing, saying this is working on your balance, it's working on your balance for that activity, right? And so what we want to do is we want to work on all aspects of your body's ability to move and its strength in doing those movements so it can kind of handle the different directions that you might move without losing your balance, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And also, um, working on also speed of movements, reactionary time, because a lot of times it's not just that you didn't have necessarily the strength of the movement, but the what direction you went in that caused you to lose your balance, your body didn't recover from fast enough. And so that's something that we also don't necessarily think about it. And, this happens to myself, even I play ice hockey, and as I've gone through it, and if I take a month off or 2 months off, all of a sudden my eyes are telling me one thing and my hands are doing another thing and my legs are doing another thing. but they're not necessarily communicating as effectively as I want to because they're out of practice. And so if we go throughout our lifetime not experiencing certain things, our bodies become out of practice of responding physically to things. And so whether it's a curb or an off-kilter pathway, um, it our bodies sometimes, oh, I'm tipping, I need to respond, instead of I'm tipping, I need to respond, if that makes any sense
Hmm.
to you. And so part of exercise is that um, practicing something through repetition, but also changing movement patterns through repetition. So to try to have your body have the ability to respond to changes in movement patterns.
Okay. Next question. This person uses bands instead of hand weights, and they want to know if that's an equally valid way to get exercise.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Kind of resistance, and this will also depend on who you talk to. But resistance is resistance. What you're trying to do is you're trying to give your body a reason to respond, right? Whether it's through repetition or load, given your body, if your body feels a stress, either through repetition or load, it will say, I have to stay strong. I have to be able to do this when it gets kind of hard. And so if it's through bands or if it's through weights, it doesn't real in the bigger picture, I don't think it makes a difference. It's that you're doing something and you're fatiguing the system enough. You're giving the body a reason to stay capable. But everybody has kind of their preferences on what they like to use, what they think is the safer method, what they think is the more effective method, what they think is the more efficient method. Um, but what's important is that you find the method that you feel comfortable doing for the deliberate purpose of improving, if that makes sense.
Yep. The next question. This person said, standing is an important activity that's often affected by a more sedentary lifestyle. They have an Apple Watch that reminds them to stand every hour. What's your feeling about all the various fitness devices and wearables and things like that that are available to people? Are there any that you really like? Any that you think are a waste of money? What do you think?
Um, I I like them. I think they can serve a very good purpose for a lot of people. I think one of the funny things that I read or heard, I don't know who said it, but it was fitness watches don't make you fit. Um, but what they can do is give you information. They are a excellent provider of information. And so what you can do with that information is you can set goals with that information, whether it is to reach a certain heart rate, reach a certain amount of steps, use it as a reminder to stand up, or use it as a reminder to breathe sometimes, right? My Apple Watch tells me to breathe sometimes. You're like, you're right. I should take a moment and breathe. Um, but I think they can be great, and I think they can be motivational, especially if you use it. That's that's the trick. Is they all kind of do the same thing. Whether you go for a walk and your Fitbit tells you you took 5,000 steps, or your Apple Watch tells you you took 5,500 steps, or your Garmin tells you you took 4,500 steps, that's not overly important. What's important is that you went out there and you took almost 5,000 steps. That's what's important. And you read it, you logged it. It reminded you, I need to take my steps. That's what's important. They can also be useful as far as they're registering heart rate on a lot of them are registering heart rate on a regular basis. My mother-in-law actually, her Fitbit uh, told her it registered some irregularities. Maybe you should think about seeing a doctor. She did, and she had AFib. and she didn't realize that she was getting tired all the time, and just kind of feeling slow and tired. But it got her to go to the doctor. Um, and she had some procedures done and is doing a lot better. But so I think they definitely have a purpose. It's just a matter of figuring out what your purpose with it is and utilizing it.
Okay. Another question is, how can older adults decide whether to work with a personal trainer, and what should they know if they decide to do so?
Um, that's a good question. Um, for from my standpoint, it's kind of it can be a lot of different things, kind of what your experience is. If you don't have any experience exercising and working out and strength training, it would probably be a good idea to at least talk to one. And there shouldn't be a problem with any personal trainer talking to anyone about their fitness goals. Um, and just discussing them so that an individual can get an idea of what they should be doing or what they could be doing. Um, Even elite athletes have personal trainers. Actors and actresses have personal trainers, even though they look like they are just fitness specialists, right? Um, but there's nothing like having uh, a separate opinion from yourself to discuss what your goals are and what you can do to improve them. Um, so I would say whether it's going to a gym, if you belong to a gym, and just having 3 sessions with a personal trainer to discuss what your goals are and what maybe you could do to achieve them, or um, like in my case, I do in home, and I see all of my clients 2 or 3 times a week, because I am their accountability tool. I show up every time, and whether they're down in the dumps, whether they're tired, any of those things, I'm there. They should probably work out. Um, so if you can go to the gym and you feel confident in what you're doing, go to the gym and do what you feel confident doing. Do it consistently. If you don't, talk to a professional. Uh, One of the best ways I think to find a personal trainer probably is talk to your friends, see who they're using. Um, I haven't done marketing ever. In my business, I this is, like I said, this is the first presentation I've done since managing a small facility. Um, and I think that's all. Your friends know you, and if they have personal trainers, they know they're personal trainers, and they can make excellent recommendations for you. Um,
What's the price range for personal trainers?
um, it varies. I'll say that, and it depends on what you're getting, what you're looking for. Um, if you're doing 30 minutes or if you're doing an hour, um, if you're paying, for a package up front, or if you're paying individually. Um, Different people do it different ways. I would I would say, um, and I haven't checked or looked into this recently, um, but you might pay anywhere from uh, $40 to $50 for half an hour. You might pay anywhere from $60 to $100 for an hour, depending on where it is and who it is. Um, but it varies somewhere in those blocks.
Well, suppose you do hire a personal trainer. Are there any red flags that we should be aware of that would tell us I need to change to somebody else? This isn't going to work.
Um, if if you feel like you're in danger, for sure. If you feel like you're getting hurt all the time doing exercises, um, if you feel like you're not being heard, um, I think a good personal trainer should be able to listen to what you're saying and be able to think about you and your situation and um, how they can work with you. Um, you know, obviously they're the professional. They know what works and what doesn't. Um, but there are a lot of things that work and a lot of things that don't. And everybody likes certain things and don't like certain things. And I think a trainer should be able to listen and get feedback from the people they're working with to be able to adjust accordingly um to not. And I actually had to learn this when I was just getting into the industry, is that it's not just a my way or the highway kind of business. Um, it has to be good communication about what works for the individual, because some things really don't work for some individuals, whether it's heavy weights or whether it's just cardio or stretching, um, that sort of thing. um, I think the most important thing is that communication side of things. If you feel um, if you feel comfortable with the person you're with and you feel confident in them, um, then it's good. If you don't feel comfortable with them and you don't feel confident in what they're asking you to do, um, then I would say it would be okay to kind of look outside um, that individual as your trainer, because there are lots of them out there, and they have lots of different backgrounds and different educations and different philosophies on what works and what doesn't work. And part of it is about finding what works for you.
Yeah, I see Carolyn has her hand up. Do you have a question?
Yeah, no, it just didn't, it was too long to type. I started working with a personal trainer a while ago, and one of the things that I really appreciated about him was that when we talked and I explained to him why I was there and what I wanted to accomplish and whatnot, he did an assessment and he had me just do basic, some of it was even just basic getting up and off down from the floor, tested how strong my legs were, how well I moved with them, etc. And I really appreciated that he started with an assessment. He didn't just jump into, okay, here's some weights, let's go. Um, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, your trainer should do an assessment to gauge where you are. They shouldn't definitely just be throwing you on the treadmill and having you run for 5 minutes right off the bat. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we've got a comment here. As older individuals, it's important that a trainer understand how to use routines or tailor what they're doing to activities that are responsible, reasonable for people of our age. Are there trainers that specialize in older clients?
I would say yes. Um, I I wouldn't be able to give recommendations necessarily on who they would be, but there are actual like certifications. So I through I'm certified as a personal trainer through the American Council on Exercise, and one of their kind of side certifications is um, aging adults. And so I do have that certification. So you could say I specialize in aging adults. I specialize in youth sports. I specialize in um, a lot of different aspects, post trauma, brain rehab. There's a lot of uh, post cancer rehabilitation. There's a lot of different smaller certifications that can put you into specializations like that.
Okay, I have a question here about whether there's a website people can go to check out and find a personal trainer.
I don't have one specifically. So I believe, and I could be wrong, that the American Council on Exercise, like if you were to go onto their website, you might be able to find a trainer there that it would say these are our certified trainers that are in your area. Same with the National Academy of Sports Medicine is another kind of common personal training certification that you probably could go on there and find a trainer. But I don't have.
Somebody else had suggested Washington Consumer Checkbook as a starting place.
Yeah, you could check. But I don't know for sure.
Okay, you've mentioned a number of different certifications. Which ones should we look for in a personal trainer?
You know, that's a challenge, a good question, a very valid question. It's a challenging one to answer. Because there are so many certifying bodies out there, it's not a licensure, right? Like, so like with physical therapy, you have to be licensed physical therapist within your state. And so everybody that's a physical therapist in the state of Virginia has to be licensed by them. And so they all kind of go through the same training. With personal trainers, it's different. You when you're starting out, so like my degree is in exercise science. I started there with a degree in it. And then I went from there with a specialty certification called super slow, which was a very slow, intense, burning type of strength training and strength training only. And I thought this is perfect. This is great. I have my specialty certification and I have my college degree. And then when I went to move on from the super slow facility that I was at and went to a general personal training gym, they didn't recognize that as a certification. Even though I had a college degree, they still wanted me to get one of their three chosen certifications, which was either ACE, which is the American Council on Exercise, or NASM, which is the National Academy of Sports Medicine, or NSPA, which is the National Strength Professionals Association, I believe. They wanted you to have one of those three certifications. But there's also the AFAA, which is the Aerobics and Fitness Association of America. So there's a lot of different certifications that are out there. And that's why I recommend kind of the talk to your friends, get to know who this personal trainer is, where they're coming from, what their experiences are, what their specialties are, that sort of thing. You absolutely can interview personal trainers. It's a very valid thing to do, to sit down with multiple personal trainers and talk to them and get a feel for who they are, what their background is, what their education is, and what their focuses are. But there's unfortunately not one that kind of stands out.
Okay, you said you had several topics you wanted to address today, and it's already 11:45. So do you want to kind of put the remaining questions aside and get to them if we have time and address the other topics you wanted to talk about?
Sure, that's fine. So the second topic I wanted to talk about was cardiovascular health. And by that I'm generalizing cardiovascular health, or being kind of cardiovascularly healthy is, can you participate in an activity for 30 minutes on your feet? Because if you can't, you start to limit the things that you can do outside of your home. You will start to limit the things that you do outside of your home. And heart disease is the leading cause of hospitalization and death in the US. And so as we age, we're clearly trying to fight off death, and we are also trying to stay out of the hospital. And so making sure that we can walk and stand for 30 minutes at a time can become really critically important, not just from getting out and doing things, but also from our cardiovascular health and reducing our chances of going to the hospital and then even worse. So if there was one blanket thing, the one thing that your doctor almost always will tell you, walk. Being able to walk is really, really critically important. When we stop walking is when all of our systems start to decrease functionality when we stop walking, because it doesn't take nearly as much work to fuel a system that's sitting down as it does to fuel a system that's upright and moving. Um, that's the second really important reason to exercise. Whether you get that through strength training or you get it through specifically doing an activity for 30 minutes straight, it's up to you, but it's critically important to have your heart rate elevated for a period of time regularly, so that it feels the requirement to have to be able to pump the blood through the system. If the body doesn't move and it doesn't get up and down, that's what the heart supports. It supports movement. And so if it's not moving, the heart won't see a need to stay strong. So that was my second point. The third is a generalized mental health. From our mental health standpoint, if we're not strong enough to do daily activities, we're not healthy enough to go out and participate in activities, to participate in social situations, because we're a little afraid of possibly either falling or not being able, if whether it's a walk or something where we would have to be on our feet for an extended period of time. Maybe it's a wedding or something like that, where maybe there might be dancing or less opportunities to sit down. As those things get harder for us, we start to develop anxieties about those things. We start to it becomes not as fun to prepare to go out. We start to lose the desire to go out. And when we lose the desire to go out and experience things, not only does it affect us physically, getting out, moving, standing up, walking, sitting down, standing up, walking, sitting down, that sort of things, but also from a mental usage standpoint. If we're not experiencing things, if our brain doesn't see different things, if it doesn't hear different things, our brain will slowly start to shut down. It won't see a need to stay healthy and strong, to experience all the things that we do in life. And with that then becomes the depression of not doing those things. And then once you become depressed about doing those things, you won't do those things. Your body will tell you, spare yourself, stay at home. And then we start to, it's kind of a snowball effect. Our cognitive function starts to decrease as we lose the ability to communicate with other people, and as we lose the ability to experience different things, whether it's that guy with the blower. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Um, you know, constantly going around in your ears, so to experience, what is that sound? Or when it's a little windy outside, or if it's raining outside, to experience those textures and those sounds and those visualizations. When we stop experiencing all those things, our cognitive function starts to decrease because it doesn't need to respond to them. anymore. And that's when we start to worry about other aspects of aging as far as dementia and Alzheimer's and other brain diseases. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the other two aspects that I want. And as we exercise, as we strength train, as we practice movement for the deliberate purpose of improving, we won't stop it from happening, but we will reduce how quickly it happens. And then we're all trying to live longer, right? My main goal is for everybody to live better as they age. Because you can live pretty long in a pretty miserable state. But if you're capable as you age, you're going to be a lot happier as you age.
Okay, we have a question here. In addition to personal training, what kinds of information do you provide about nutrition?
So the information that I provide about nutrition is just that information. I'm not a dietitian and I'm not a registered nutritionist. I cannot prescribe food or diet plans or any of those things. But what I can do is I can provide you with a lot of information for you to be able to make a decision on your own about how you want to proceed. If that makes sense, I can work on techniques for you to follow through with the decisions you make or the goals that you have. So it's when you come out of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, you come out of it as a registered health coach, with a big background of nutrition, if that makes sense. But I'm not a registered dietitian or a nutritionist, so I don't actually prescribe food. It's just I have a knowledge about it and I have a lot of information about it to be able to talk to you about it, for you to be able to make choices about it.
I've got a question here. This is somebody that has problems with her feet, and so walking is a challenge. She wants to know, do swimming or riding a Peloton have a similar effect, or should she be walking anyway?
They have an effect. I will say that. A similar effect, probably not. Because in water, gravity is not the same, right? Our bodies are pretty buoyant by nature. They kind of float in water, and so they don't have to load bear very much at all in water. But what water does provide is it does provide a continuous resistance as you move through the water, which is beneficial if you're moving through water, especially if you have a situation where standing and walking is painful. When you're standing and walking in water, it's probably not nearly as painful because gravity is not forcing you into the ground. You can kind of stay above the surface, if you will, and you can still move your body through it. And then it just becomes about how hard you move your body through it and how many repetitions you move your body through it. But it doesn't have the same effect that gravity has, load bearing you to the ground, if that makes sense. And similarly, a Peloton or a bicycle, any sort of bicycle, whether it's a real bicycle or a stationary one, the second your butt hits that seat, you've unloaded your legs and you've reduced how much gravity is affecting you significantly. Adversely, like you can turn the tension up and you can make it harder for you, and then therefore your legs have to work more, and you can kind of produce your own load bearing exercise by increasing the tension that goes into that riding. But it's different. I'll say that. It's definitely different.
Okay. Person points out there are lots of fads in the fitness industry. Somebody's coming out with a new gadget or a new program or something all the time. do you have any thoughts on current fads that you find alarming because they pose a higher risk of injury or they're being misrepresented?
I don't. Um, and I don't because, like I said, everybody's different. I think the biggest thing that I'm cautious of would be the pharmaceutical industry and, um, kind of what their purpose is, um, in the industry, how they can serve it well and have how they can, serve it inappropriately. Um, but that's the only one. As far as exercise workout programs or diets go, um, I ha I hesitate to comment because I haven't done any specific deep diving into any one. Um, what I do know is that most things, if you're consistent with them, will work. If you overdo them, your body will become irritated and tell you so. And if you don't do them consistently, they won't work.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a good enough answer. Um, but
Well,
it's
sounds
hard to
like
pick.
you're saying listen to your body.
Yeah, listen to your body.
All right, well, we're almost done. Let me give you one last question, which is what's the difference between a personal trainer and a physical therapist that could be billed to your healthcare insurance?
Um, one a physical therapist went to college to be a physical therapist. Um, th they all go through a very similar process. They have to, like I said, they have to be licensed by the state in most cases. In most cases, it's a PhD program of some sort, so you come out a doctor of physical therapy. Um, and a personal trainer can kind of be anyone that says I'm a personal trainer, and then it's just about what their background is and what their experiences are and what their philosophies are. Um, part of the problem with personal training is it's a lot of people, not unlike kind of our like it's a lot of people saying I know best, and then it becomes a lot of people saying I know best. That person doesn't know what they're talking about, and so um, it's they're not super comparable. One is highly kind of organized and controlled. The other one's not. A physical therapist micromanages injuries usually, right? Um, you have a specific problem. I'm going to work on that problem. A personal trainer is going to be a macro manager and look at your whole body and say, how can we improve your quality of life as a whole? If that makes sense. And depending on your insurance and stuff like that, like and that sort of thing. Some will allow an allotment for personal training, um, but a physical therapist is much more specific in what they're working on and the information they have to provide, um, that sort of thing.
All right, well, we're at a little bit after 11, so I think it's time to stop the recording and thank you, John, for a very, very informative talk. I think we all got a lot out of it.
Yeah, I hope that was helpful.